Remedies renewing lives.
Our mission is renewing lives of individuals affected by addiction, mental health issues, and domestic violence. All services for survivors of domestic violence are free, confidential, and voluntary. Under our domestic violence program, we provide a variety of services: a 24-hour hotline, 24-hour shelter, legal advocacy, assistance with orders of protection, domestic violence counseling, advocacy, support, therapy, support groups, transitional housing, children's services, presentations, outreach, trainings. The Therapy and Advocacy Project of Remedies Renewing Lives domestic violence program includes a full-time therapist and a full-time advocate to provide immediate and ongoing therapeutic and advocacy-based support for survivors of domestic violence. These services are available to victims/survivors accessing Remedies' 24-hour emergency shelter and or non-residential domestic violence services.
Remedies Renewing Lives is grateful to the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board and to the voters in Winnebago County who have supported the 1/2-cent sales tax. This funding supports valuable programs in our community, such as our domestic violence therapy and advocacy project. Thanks to this funding opportunity, we have been able to expand and sustain these valuable services for survivors of domestic violence. In the last program year, 135 victims/survivors of domestic violence received therapy services, and 292 received advocacy and case management services under this project.
We are able to provide services in a safe environment in person, phone, and via Zoom. Here are some pictures of the therapy rooms and offices that we provide services to the survivors/victims of domestic violence. Through this funding, we are able to provide an adult art therapy group. In these safe spaces, we provide advocacy services, psychoeducation, trauma-informed therapy, play therapy, support groups. This is our playroom where we provide therapy services to children. Benefits of trauma-informed services. Trauma-informed therapy helps survivors address their trauma and its impact on their mental and emotional well-being. This can be crucial in breaking the cycle of abuse and helping them heal. The impact in our community. Survivors who completed surveys in the last year about the impact of the therapy and advocacy services they received overwhelmingly reported that victims feel more hopeful for the future, gain a better understanding of the effects of abuse on their life, they know more ways to plan for their safety, they feel better able to support themselves and their children, they feel supported and valued, they feel empowered. They develop coping strategies to utilize in their everyday life. Domestic violence therapist.
Hi, my name is Tanya Popoka. I am a domestic violence therapist here at Remedies Renewing Lives. My position is funded through the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board. Because of this funding, I am able to provide therapy services to survivors of domestic violence, which includes children. I am also able to facilitate an adult art therapy group, which focuses on identifying coping skills and expressing their emotions through art. Therapy can provide a safe space to heal from trauma that they have been through. It can help them identify new coping mechanisms that they can utilize in their everyday life. It can help them rebuild their self-esteem. Therapy addresses a range of complex issues to support and treat individuals and families affected by domestic violence.
Some of the areas that we may work on is safety, trauma and PTSD, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, self-esteem, identifying healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, empowerment, childhood trauma, anxiety, depression, legal and financial issues. Therapy helps them process these experiences and develop coping mechanisms to help them manage these symptoms on their own. Therapy focuses on rebuilding self esteem and helping survivors regain a sense of identity.
Domestic violence advocate.
Hello, my name is Chantel Alton, and I'm a domestic violence advocate for Remedies Renewing Lives, in a position funded by the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board. All Remedies domestic violence services are free, confidential, inclusive, and voluntary, serving domestic violence victims and survivors in our local community. With the support of Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board, my position is funded to provide trauma-informed individual advocacy-based counseling and peer support. Using the empowerment model of counseling, these services include advocacy supports, intakes, service planning or goal setting, explaining program services, providing physical and medical accommodations when needed, domestic violence and life skills education, problem solving, safety planning, and assessing lethality, all in effort to promote and empower survivors in pursuing their personal goals, regaining their independence, and living violence-free. As a domestic violence advocate, my goal is to work with survivors to identify barriers and empower routes to remove those barriers, meeting survivors where they are at, both in immediate and long-term needs, while providing emotional support and promoting self-advocacy. In addition to individual advocacy-based counseling, I assist survivors with providing and referring community-based resources. Services referred, for example, public aid, employment services, housing, legal advocacy, and accompaniment to court proceedings for criminal, orders of protection, DCFS, and family court, Social Security and medical assistance, supports with crime victims compensation, and more. I also refer survivors to other remedy services when appropriate, including other domestic violence services, IRISE human trafficking services, and substance abuse treatment services. Additionally, I provide and facilitate 2 support groups. I facilitate the Wednesday Warriors, a survivor-led group where we discuss the many barriers experienced by survivors, reviewing domestic violence education, providing emotional support, coping skills, meditation and mindfulness methods, and additional resources of support. I also facilitate a Fun Friday group that focuses on fellowship, creativity, mindfulness, and meditation and adventure to practice grounding and mindfulness in the trauma healing. While there are many impacts as a result of these funded services, I will share a few non-identifying examples of successes. Clients have reported successfully attaining their career and educational goals, gaining security and independence in housing, rallying support from community resources and referrals, overcoming addiction and maintaining their sobriety, receiving advocacy and therapeutic support that has allowed them to process past traumas, empowerment and recognizing red flags of abuse and creating healthy boundaries, acquiring child care services to support economic goals, gaining confidence with parenting after domestic violence, receiving validating legal support and advocacy in court proceedings, feeling better prepared in safety planning, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and digitally, and gaining a safe community of support with fellow survivors. This project at Remedies, funded by the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board, provides ongoing domestic violence support to the community.
Do you or someone you know need help? Please reach out. Call our 24-hour hotline at 815-962-6102. Thank you to the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board.